Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Northern Showcase. We look forward to spending next hour with you. I'm Pamela Renshaw, a former state manager and web developer in Trenton, Ontario, and I handle communications at No-Code.
And I'm Jeremy LaRue, a Webflow low-code developer from Vancouver. On the No-Code North team, I'm the resident automations guy and runner of the streams. Maggie, our third, can't be with us today, but on our team takes care of all of our wonderful designs and our amazing gather space.
Right. Our mission at No-Code North is twofold. First, to build a community of Canadian Webflowers and no-code enthusiasts, and second, to showcase Canadian talent to the rest of the world. We meet on Fridays at noon Eastern in the Lodge, our gather space, and once a month we host the Northern Showcase here on our YouTube channel.
Hi, thanks for joining us. Who do we see? I see, hey Dale and Patrick, and if anybody else is here, give a wave and let us know you're here. We do have some time today for Q&A, so if you do have those questions, pop them into the chat, and if it fits into the conversation, we'll add it to the conversation. If not, we will save it for the Q&A at the end.
Okay. So, on today's Northern Showcase, we're interviewing Yomi Jordan. Yomi is a true devsigner, a multi-talented professional with a unique blend of creativity and technical expertise. With a background in fine arts and web design and development, Yomi brings a fresh and innovative approach to the world of web design and user experience. So please help us welcome Yomi.
Hey, Yomi.
Hello.
Hi, Yomi. How are you?
My throat might be a little croaky. I was just recovering from being sick, but I am doing good.
Okay, good, excellent. We're so glad that we're finally getting a chance to have this conversation. You've been part of No-Code North right from the very beginning. I think we met probably at the Global Open House, perhaps, or that's how you heard of us. You were at the very first No-Code North. So that's great that we're finally getting a chance to get a little bit more behind the scenes with you.
Yeah, I've been. It's cool to have this opportunity. I think, we obviously like showcasing everybody, but it's really special to have people that have been contributing to the community and part of it to be able to introduce you to more people that may not know you. So as you are like stealth in social media and online presence, there's lots to uncover, I think. So it's gonna be great. So you're from Edmonton. I thought we'd probably let people who may not be familiar with where Edmonton is in Canada maybe just kind of start there and explain kind of what Edmonton is like and
yeah, sure. Okay, so Jeremy's in Vancouver. Everyone kind of knows where Vancouver is. You drive about, 12 hours inland. Then you get to Alberta. You have to go through the mountains. So you can pass Banff or past Jasper, depending on where you are. Most people kind of know the mountains. It's snowy. It's beautiful. Then you get out of the mountains. You're in prairie flatland. And then you reach Edmonton. Yay! Very quick demonstration of where it is.
I guess, and also north, right? Like that's the other aspect of things.
Very straight north road up from Calgary.
Right, and north means it's a little colder there. I spent a year in Edmonton, and it was probably the coldest winter of my entire life.
It is not this year, but normally it is very cold. We've actually had no snow this entire November, which has been the first on record, which is super weird. Yeah, you're trying to do Christmas decorations and it's where's the snow?
Yeah, really. I recall, this is a long time ago because I'm really old now. But a long time ago, there was a Woolworths store downtown, and that's where I had to catch my bus. And I just remember these minus 40 degree winds whipping around the corner and just freezing. It was unbelievable. And that minus 40 is like really cold for those of you who are out there who don't know what Celsius is. Yeah.
I believe it's also minus 40 in Fahrenheit too. I think that's where they meet. They're like, hello, we're super cold.
Cold. But probably most people have not experienced -40 in either scale. So.
Exactly.
I love that Patrick says square tire country for sure. Absolutely. Very, very true. And those of you who have not lived in a cold place may not understand what that means, but when you start to drive, your tires kind of they kind of flatten and square up a little bit in the cold. And so you kind of get this thuddy, thuddy, thuddy sound for the first little while. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if I've experienced that. And I'm content not to.
There are some things you just don't need to actually experience. I get it. Anyway, Jeremy, I think you should take this lovely list of questions that you've got and take it away with the interview.
Excellent. So I thought, because I'm curious about your origin story. So you came from Australia originally. So what were you doing in Australia that kind of just, I guess, ties into where you proceeded in work and in your vocation kind of thing?
Yeah, so Australian, so there's a slight accent, not really. Been here for 13 years. But yeah, I started in fine arts, so that's where I have that art background. I used to do oil paintings and gallery openings and stuff like that. So yeah, painting and all that design was like a really big thing. I think my family warned me, don't go into graphic design, so I never ventured in that path. Almost became a tattoo artist, but have tattoos, not a tattoo artist. I did a bit of fashion design as well, so I went to school for that as well. So I can make really cool clothes if I want to or have time. And then yeah, I was bartending for years because I wanted to travel and ended up in Vancouver, which is where Jeremy is. So yeah.
Yeah, and so from doing all of that stuff, where did you find yourself in Vancouver, like as far as like working in the space, like in that creative space?
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of photography actually. I do photography in front of the camera and behind the camera. So I did that, and then I had friends that needed things built for them. So I had my husband, he started a podcast and he needed a website built. So I figured it out, and WordPress, yay, as you do. Also, I was working in a tattoo shop and they needed social media and stuff and a website. So it was like I was, tinkering as you do when you first start. You're not really sure what you're doing, adding some colors and that's about it. So that's kind of where that first introduction into the web kind of came in.
And then did that kind of lead you to thinking you wanted to do more of that kind of stuff? Is that how you ended up at the North Alberta Institute of Technology?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when I was doing the website for my husband, like I really wanted to be able to do a lot of custom stuff, and that's where I was like, ooh, this is really kind of cool. So I did a few free courses in code just so I could figure out if this is something I wanted to do. And then so I was living in Calgary at the time and looking at the program there versus the Edmonton one. And actually Edmonton at NAIT seemed like the best course for me.
Excellent. And so your time at NAIT, what was it a variety of all of the things that you were learning then, as far as how many years, was it several year program, or how did that work?
Yeah, it was a 2-year diploma. It was the digital media and IT with a web design and development focus. So it was 2 years. I think I did it in 2.5 because I started part-time because I hadn't been in school for a long time. And I was like, I don't know if I can handle this full time. So yeah, I actually started learning C# was like my first coding language, which is pretty strange first language to jump into. So I went C# which is if you mess up a period, it's a problem, or it's an issue. Um, and then did PHP, learned WordPress, JavaScript, vanilla and advanced, CSS, SCSS. So like do all the basics, obviously HTML. So I, and then like did the UX part there too. They really had a really in-depth UX instructors there, were really helpful. So that was always a great focus too. And then I was like, okay, I like doing everything and I'm actually good at everything. What do I do? Like, what career do I go to? Because that's always the big question, is what's after the school, right?
Yeah, interesting. But can we explain UX just a little bit, just in case people who are watching don't know what it is? Just maybe a quick explanation of what that is.
Yeah, and that's a great UX thing to do. Is hey, UX is short term for where we're in the industry, but obviously it's user experience. So it's understanding the user's experience with the product, like how they're going to interact. Like currently, I'm interacting with the screen. How do I do that? I have a camera on, which are the easiest buttons to get to. So like understanding that experience. And then the UI part is the interface that you interact with. So the designs of those buttons, if they are grayed out, if some is highlighted red to be more prominent. So that's the interface part of that experience. So there's the two sides, and they're both really interesting.
Yeah, and they kind of get mushed together a little bit. Like it's hard for them to be separate from each other, isn't it? Or is there a good way of delineating?
Yeah, there is. So the user experience is like more that research. So you're doing user personas, you're interviewing users on their experiences with products. So you're doing a lot of that behind the scenes research first. So that's a lot of that. The heuristic evaluations, if you don't have access to users to test with, but it is like a lot of that that testing behind the scenes work first before you can get to that kind of even wireframes or even a sitemap. You have to do a lot of testing first, do a sitemap, and then retest, and then yeah, it's ready to go.
Is that something that I guess only real larger companies have a tendency of doing? Like, do we skip some of that sometimes?
Yes, so it is like so I'm at ZGM, but our sister company Paperleaf, they're really heavy into building apps and whole systems and stuff. So they really dig into that part of it. I do the Cliff Notes version of it for my work, which is heuristic valuations, because I don't need that user interaction, or I could get my coworkers to test out something. I was like, okay, here's a little prototype. Where would you go from here? And just see what they do. But for the most part, it is Cliff Notes version. and then with like, this is what we think the user flow would be. And obviously we know from testing, it's not always what the user will do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the Cliff Notes version, I think, is still super important to be able to have that kind of, and for people who are, maybe start further in, going back and like doing that kind of thing is probably something that it's probably not that hard to do, as far as like to add it into a process. Even if you're like not necessarily familiar with it, it's as much preparation as one can do before we like do things. There's a lot of less undoing or redoing things, I think, as a result, or the end result ends up being better, and I guess a smoother. Have you found like working on something that may not have that, or have you had that opportunity where you're like, I don't have any of that, and this is what the result is, versus, oh yeah, we have so much of that and this is what the result is? Like, have you had experience working in both?
I've been in both cases. But for the most part, is like, okay, get a sitemap together. And I'm like, I'm going to do some research over here for a little bit, and then I'll get you that sitemap. So I just like a mini version or jumping straight in. And especially if they have an existing product, it's a lot easier to like do testing, because you can try to do the flow, and if it doesn't work out, you're like, okay, we have some misconnections here that we can fix. But if you're starting fresh, that's when you really have to rely on all those existing understandings of how things should flow, and look at common expectations, so common flows, because people aren't on your product all the time. They're on millions of products. So having those recognizable flows is really important to follow those. Otherwise, you're just going to confuse a user. Like, don't put your menu on the bottom left-hand corner. No one knows where that is. They're going to look at the top.
So not just to be different?
Yeah. Different, not always better in user experience.
So I'm amazed, actually, because I mean, you have such a high level of code with what you're doing, but you also have the fine art. So you really are, as we said in the introduction, what there, I guess, is being kind of coined as a devsigner, where it's like you can design something beautifully and execute on it, which, you know, is a superpower for sure. And I guess, as far as like, are there things that you use on a regular basis that I guess, from the code end of things, or stuff that you're like, oh, well, and other things that you're just like, well, I don't really deal with any of that? Like, are there like delineating lines about, like, because you were talking about where your job kind of fits, or where you wanted to, you know, where do you spend your time doing? Because you can't spend your time doing everything. It's like physically impossible.
Yeah. It is. So luckily at my current company, there is developers there. So I actually have been doing more of just the UX design part these days, and then jumping into projects that are smaller, like those fun landing pages or microsites for the Webflow development. So I've just been doing more of that stuff these days, which is nice, having a bigger team to help out with that part. So it's actually really focusing in on that design UX portion these days.
And so now here's the $1 million question, and we ask all our guests: what was the Webflow moment? Because everybody seems to have one where it's just like you're struggling with WordPress, you're putting these things together, you're coding, you're like piecing things, and it's not exactly like you want. So when did you find Webflow, and how did it change things for you?
Actually, it was for a job. So I was applying for a job at Lyft Interactive and here in Edmonton, and they used Webflow. So for one of the interviews, they were like, "Hey, you know, check out this little like Webflow University, and let us know what you think, because you'll be working with this." And I was like, "Okay." And I built a website on the weekend before my interview, and I was like, "Here, I built something." So that was kind of my moment. I was like, "This is so easy," and like just jumped in.
Yeah, the ability to, I think, jump in is definitely one of the advantages to Webflow. Also, it can be one of those disadvantages. Like, you have the background that I guess Webflow enhances, right? And so you understand the basics of what Webflow is doing, so you can probably use it incredibly effectively. And yeah, all that but code background has to come in handy with Webflow development for sure. And so do you have any like favorite like snippets or things that you like use in projects that you kind of use over and over and over again, or things any tips and tricks?
Yeah, so always use a dynamic year code to get the year to update every year. Put it in once, forget about it. It's done. You never have to touch it again. That's like number one thing I do. So you don't go to a website and see 2017 and be like, ooh, that ain't touched for a while. Um, so that's always like number one on mine. Doing the so you know how you get links inside of paragraphs. So doing the P and then getting the A's. So P, direct A, and then targeting those direct links inside of paragraphs, so you can make your links with an underline, because obviously with buttons you don't want those links to all have underlines because you need to style them. So targeting those direct ones inside paragraphs to have an underline and a color style is like just a quick little thing that really helps, and you don't have to try to physically target those, especially if it's in a rich text block hidden inside something. So yeah, that's always like another little tidbit. And always love using Timothy Ricks's wizardry, so just to have everything scale nicely for larger screens. So that was always a sweet one too.
So you use wizardry. That's your kind of go-to. Are you pairing Lumos with that as well as I guess the style guide? Have you run into that from him as well, or no?
No, I haven't looked at that one yet. So my company uses Reloom. So we have the Reloom library. So I use the Reloom style guide for the starters, which obviously everyone knows having starter libraries really just helps to speed up that development time. Obviously, you can totally develop things from scratch, but if you're short on time, like you need to build a portfolio in a week, just use a starter guide, and then you can tweak and do all the really fun things from there.
Yeah. And so Patrick says you should put some C+ or C# in your website to confuse everyone who uses as little as homage to where you started.
Yeah.
I wonder would people recognize it, or I don't even know. I don't even know what that would look like.
Probably not.
Patrick would.
That's it. Just a random little a few people. There'll be like 1% of people would understand it.
And Patrick has another question here. Coming from an art background, was the transition into learning code difficult at first? It sounds like you went pretty deep into that ecosystem.
No, I've always been good at math. So I have like a weird brain that does like art and math really well. I was always good at math and science and stuff like that. So it really wasn't the craziest for me.
Well, yeah, lucky you. It's interesting because coming from like not being a strong math person, and one of those people were like, after this grade, I am never doing math again. And that's just not the way it works, especially when like dealing with the coding aspect of things and whatnot, realizing how much math is like in there. But yeah, I think the first time that I realized, or you know, when you did a show and tell with us where you showed this fair website that you had was using local storage and stuff like that. This was like before Wiz or before anything else. You had figured out how to like favorite things using local storage and stuff like that. I don't have the site handy, but that from that moment I was always intrigued on, and it was kind of inspiring to be like, oh, you can do things like that. How do we do things like that? So it's like you were part of that push into the rabbit hole of like going down the path of, oh, here's another person I can learn from. So Sweet. It was it's very cool. I like how this community really has a tendency of sharing their knowledge and helps everybody get better with the tools. Speaking of which, have you had much chance to, I guess now that Webflow has definitely embrace developers more. Have you had much opportunity to use like things like variables and things like that? Are there things that you're using them like now for that are like, oh yeah, I'm doing that?
Yeah, you mentioned variables. I like as soon as variables came out, I was like, haha, magic. So I like jumped on that and updated a few websites like right away. I was like, yes, I have this power now. I can do the things I want to. So yeah, really jumped in on that one. That was great. What's up? There's been so many more. Localization, haven't used it yet, but very excited for it. And the fact that they've released it as an add-on, you don't have to be what is it, an executive partner or whatever it is.
Oh, an enterprise or whatever?
Yeah,
or,
you don't have to have that level, which is great. It's an add-on, so you can play with it first, and then when you add on, you can add that. So I think that's really smart that they did that way, because there's a lot of features that I've wanted to use, and not being an enterprise customer, I don't get access to the things.
Yeah.
Link is also really cool. If you haven't used it, do sign up to get access and use DevLink. Yeah.
What do you, so I guess yes to variables, you like jumped in right away. So what were the things that you put variables on? Like obviously we have the color swatches and things like that, but what are like, this is like, no, this is what I'm using variables for.
I did it for spacing. And then I used it for, because I needed to target a percentage from an outside source and create a percentage variable calculator. So I created that variable, and then I used code to update that number. Awesome. So, and then there was an animation with it too. So that one's not live yet, but I can show you when it gets live.
That's cool. Yeah, I think there's just I'll be amazed to see what people are like, because it's almost like, well, what can I think of to do with variables? To the first ones that I was using was like just radius on, because a lot of what I do is I take other people's designs, so it's like the radius on the desktop version versus the mobile version, and sometimes I don't look that close, so I didn't realize there was a difference. But then when you like apply it, and also the advantage is if it's like, oh well, this needs to change, it can change everywhere that you have added the variable to it, so it makes it much like the swatches and everything else. It's one of those things, and I've heard spacing is another one of those that is being used. Yeah, I'm super interested in seeing how people use all these things. Like we just need a showcase or a hangout where we just basically share variable tricks and be like, I use it for this.
Yeah, exactly. Another one is the animations too. So doing colored backgrounds is like really easy now using the variables. So that's another like, yay.
How do you, is that a quick thing that you can kind of explain, or is it more in depth? Like how does that happen?
So so you set a variable with a specific name, and then in your animations panel, you can target a variable. So you grab that variable, but the only downside is you actually have to manually put in a new color if you're doing a color. So that's the thing I find like a little annoying. It'd be great if we could just select another, variable on that.
So you have to actually specify the same. It's the same variable that you're updating. It's not. You can't replace the variable.
Yeah, you're targeting a variable, so something that has that variable on it, and then you have to like manually change those colors. That's like a little annoying, because if you change the color of that variable in the design, you're gonna have to go back and change it in your animations panel.
Okay, so it's like that's just a two-step thing.
Yeah.
So Webflow, if you're listening, this is to Webflow. No, that's cool. And so the I guess I know you wanted to, the next big topic is kind of like AI and where it's going and how you've been able to, I guess, harness it in what you're doing or where you use it in what you're doing. I'm interested to hear a lot more about that.
Yeah, so obviously AI, big and interesting and really cool. And obviously getting started, it's always a little intimidating. So I started with ChatGPT, like most people did. Just, hey, can you update my text? And then I learned about prompting it correctly. So I started prompting it to um, setting up a like a little example, like, hey, you are my um, idea, you're an idea consultant, and we're gonna bounce around some ideas. You can ask me probing questions. Here is like the ask from like the whole idea. This is the ask of the product, let's say. So the product is uh, a landing page for a housing company, and we really need to target in on people that are rich. I don't know. And you just give them that, and then you throw out some, I like, this is my initial idea. And then they're like, oh, did you think about this? And it really like helps to like bounce those ideas back and forward. I've also put in, sometimes it lets you do websites. I was like, I did one time, I did a quick test. I was like, hey, can you do a UX audit on this website? I'd already done one, but I was like curious what this AI would do. And it was pretty on par. So I was like, oh, that's nice. Thank you. And I'm always polite to them too. Because you never know when they're gonna take over.
Yeah, no, it is one of those. Thank you for that's
Yeah.
not quite correct. I
Yeah.
was thinking something more like this.
Yeah. Write this in the tone of professional. Oh, too professional. Let's back that up a little bit. I've also been using is it Scribe? What was that? Oh gosh, I'm terrible with names. Sorry, people.
I don't. I'm probably less familiar with all of
Slater. Sorry.
Oh, Slater, yes.
Slater, if you haven't used it, it is amazing. So it connects to your Webflow projects, and it's like a little AI robot that does code for you. So if you're new at code and you're a little unsure, or you even just want something cleaned up, like you write some messy vanilla JavaScript and you're like, oh, this looks very messy, you can add it in and it'll give you notes in there telling you exactly what everything does. It's very handy. You can even connect it directly to your Webflow project, and it can be an external data source, which is really cool because Webflow has limitations in its code blocks. So that's been one. It's just helped clean up with quick little animations because I forget to put notes in there when you're doing quick things. So yeah, that's also a really great one.
So are you using a kind of a mix of code animations and also like Webflow native stuff? I guess anybody that really does animations knows that sometimes you kind of have to go that route.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it is. I do a lot of Webflow where I can because I think it's a great little interactions. They give you so much that you can do, but there's always those special ones that you just want to make this happen. And so yeah, you got to use external ones, especially if you're trying to work with like 3D objects. I know there's some new integrations. I haven't dived into those yet with Webflow, but yeah, you really have to use Webflow to its full advantage, but also know when you need to get that outside sources to help you achieve what you want to do.
Yeah, the spline integration, I guess, is the newest, the 3D one that looks very at the demo of at the conference and stuff like that. The demos of those things, it's just like wow, to be able to control it right in the Webflow designer was pretty cool. So Patrick has a comment. Did anyone see the guy who made the Terminator head with ChatGPT built into it? I haven't, Patrick. If you want to leave the link, which I'm sure you have, pop it in the chat. And then Dale asks, are you prompting AI for image generation to use in your Webflow builds at all?
No, but I do use Firefly to remove people's backgrounds. Like for, you have like portraits. You need to put a lot of people's portraits on websites, and they usually in random areas, kind of like where Jeremy is. He's got a lovely fake background. So
I
um,
do.
for consistency, it's like really nice just to quickly remove people's backgrounds because it just might be a little mobile shot and update it with AI. So that's the kind of the only image AI prompting that I do is just like removing people's backgrounds and giving it a cleaner one or the new expanding one in Photoshop. If you need like more room because you get given a great image, but unfortunately you need to put text over the top of it. So you need that that white space around the focus in the image. So using tools like that really help with web because photographers don't realize you need that extra space.
Exactly. Yeah, as far as because I think you said you would use the one for like the extra space in a project just recently. Have you ever used it to like, I know some people have used it as kind of a starting point to like get that inspiration ball rolling and then maybe even like recreate something that AI, like an overall thing. I've seen it where it's like somebody, I guess, kind of had an idea of what they wanted for the website, hero image or something, and then literally deconstructed and rebuilt it, but just used AI in that kind of, I guess, a lot of in that helper stage that I think a lot of us are finding that it's super handy to have, like you're saying with the UX or the questionnaires and things like that. It's just like, well, help me think about this kind of, and and so I find that those uses are very interesting because they help us do things faster that we're capable in some ways of doing ourselves. It would just take us a lot longer time to do it. So
Yeah, that's a really interesting use case for it. I haven't thought of it like that. I do like sometimes little sketches on pen and paper, old school. But I haven't thought about it for that. Actually, it might be helpful because I have to create a new kind of donor piece for a website, and I need to quickly come up with a few ideas for a new way to display a donor wall. And so, yeah, I might use it for some quick prompts of some ideas that I have and see what it comes up with. Might be
yeah,
interesting.
I think it's such an interesting space, and we can go on. AI is one of those topics that can like take over. From the usage to what things are being used for, or the whole Terminator scenario of like, how close are we? Be nice to your prompts. Have you gone into the other thing, I guess, that is reasonably new with AI is like creating your own GPT thing, I guess. I'm trying to explain. Patrick, I'm sure is much better, could explain this much better than I can. But it's like you're creating something specific. Like I saw somebody create something for a Wiz GPT that is specific to Wiz to help you use Wiz kind of thing. And it wasn't actually built by Wiz. Some fan of Wiz put it together. And so I guess I'm seeing more of that. And so people are building based on a certain level of data, specific kind of GPTs that people can use. So I don't know if you've gotten into any of that, down that rabbit hole.
Oh, that would be really helpful with certain things. I think that's kind of what that Slater thing is, because it's really focused in on core animations and specifically using code to help pull that in. So that is one that's already kind of created. But yeah, no, that That would be really interesting to create and tinker with. Maybe I'll do that.
This is Patrick's explanation, like a more specific version of ChatGPT to be just tailored and respond to prompts without as much context given.
Yep. So it has all that backlog of information. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, AI is one of those kind of topics, and we touched upon we jump. I'm just looking through my list to make sure we've like caught everything that I was wanting to discuss on kind of the business end of things. What gets you excited about like continuing to do this? Like, what is it? Are there things that you are like interested in learning at this point? More that you like want to dive into more that you're like, if you had more time, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry. So I'm learning animations, but specifically in After Effects. So actually the core understandings of animations and how things work. So that's, and I already have a few courses I've started on those. So just continuing to learn, because it's like I can take things so far, but then if I want, if like I create a simple Lottie, that's fine. But sometimes you just want an animation to do something really cool, and it's hard to explain it to another designer sometimes. So being able to build that myself is like really exciting. So I've been tinkering there and trying to get more into that. And then also to obviously quickly splice some videos together instead of tasking it out to someone else and it taking a few days. Yeah. Like I don't mind delegating. It's just I guess I am a bit of a control freak. I like doing things too.
Well, I think we all have that a little bit. Or maybe we don't all have that. I have that, where it's like I can almost. It will take me longer to explain and go do the back and forth than certain tasks require, and it will just be faster for me to do them myself. And then like I can explain afterwards how I did it or whatnot, but let's not do the back and forth for days to like figure out this tiny little thing that may even be holding things back, right?
Dale gets it.
I stand corrected. So as far as I think we touched on a little bit, you did there's a threaded this morning in X that was about dumping Mast into ChatGPT so it can answer questions for those who are wanting to learn Mast. Interesting. So I guess that is kind of it's as I kind of saw it whereas like these independent things of programs are probably going to get absorbed into them, but not everything, you know, a GPT for something very specific may never be created if people didn't start creating their own kind of thing. But depending on the company, I imagine that they're going to just start incorporating, feed their docs into the Chat GPT, and then I guess they have their own little GPT specific kind of thing within their programs. But I did want to touch on some personal stuff. So we talked a little bit about, you had mentioned something about costume. You know, you did fashion design in Australia, and so I have seen some of the work that you've done in the past. I think you said you were not really having much time to do costume stuff right now. Are you like, is it like a Halloween thing at this point, or?
Yeah, basically. It's Halloween, or if I need things kind of tailored, or there's like a specific outing that I'm like, I want a red dress, and I can't find a red dress in the right specific shade of red that I want. So I will just go out and make it.
That that has got to be a super handy skill to have, to be like, I can't find what I want, so I'm just gonna make it.
Yeah.
No, that is cool. And so in the past, did you do more of like costume designing? Was it something like you were thinking of like going all in on, or
Yeah,
what did that look like?
so actually when I was in Vancouver, obviously, Vancouver is kind of like the North Hollywood. So I think everyone's been an extra in a movie if you live there, which is pretty funny. Uh, and I was doing some costumes for some bands. They needed some cool costumes, well, I guess stage shows, and then some YouTube, not YouTube, it's on YouTube, music videos. I did costumes for a few bands for their music videos, so that was fun to do. And then if you've ever been to Burning Man, I made a ton of costumes for myself and people there.
Oh,
So
awesome.
knocking things over.
Yes, Vancouver definitely is Hollywood North. Coming as a former actor, I can more than just background. A lot of us here for our stuff too, but the costuming and everything. I mean, it definitely. I mean, the industry kind of ebbs and flows, and so. I don't know if you were like me, where you found like, yo, that's not going to quite cut it if I don't have it consistent. So it's like you need to find that other thing. But it's, man, you just have so many skills. It's just like pick from over here, over here, over here, over here. And to add it on top, you got into roller derby.
Yeah.
I think you sent me an and there's the image of it.
Yep.
So,
Crazy 88. Yeah.
So is that like how long did you do roller derby for? How'd you get into it?
So I'd had a kid and I was like, I was, wanting to be back my own person, as you do. If there's any other mothers on the audience, you kind of want to be your own person again. So I was like, roller derby's cool. I'll be all like feisty and stuff. So I got into roller derby in Calgary and did that for 2 years. And then I moved to up to Edmonton so I could go to school. So that's why I stopped doing roller derby. But it was so much fun. The girls in my team, the Thrashin' Lassies, they were amazing. Shout out to them.
Shout out to the Thrashin' Lassies. And so would you go back and do it, or that's kind of like in the past for you?
I fractured an ankle and got a concussion, and now I work with my hands, so I don't want to break my hand, So now I'm just like, ooh. I like skating still, but now I'm too nervous to get into it.
Yeah, it's a bit brutal, is it? The sport itself.
Brutal.
Let's see if we've got any more questions here. Let's pull Penny back in and hey, Penny.
Hey there. That was so interesting to sort of get some of that background. And I'm not doing enough Webflow on a regular basis to sort of have dug into that. So I'm thinking that maybe we need to have you come and do a workshop on some of those new things, particularly on variables. And I think Patrick actually had made a post in the comments about a workshop on variables. So I think that would be great to see how you're using it and some of those little tips and tricks. So I was wondering, are there designers and developers that you look to for either inspiration or to learn from?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I like follow I'm horrible with names, so I'm sorry. But yeah, there's quite a few that I really enjoy, like looking at their designs and stuff. That obviously Grace on Grid, she's amazing. Germer has also been a host on here, and Joseph
Berry.
Yes, yeah, I did his Webflow course on awards, and that was really cool too to see. So like learning from people in the community is really great because you can see how they use the tools that we work with every day. And like every day you're learning stuff from outside sources, and just always learning is always great. And there's a website called Godly. They always have some great website examples on there. So it's not just awards. There's Godly too. Other stuff to look at.
Yeah, there's great. There's a new one that's all footer designs. Have you had a chance to check that one out?
I thought that was
Yeah,
fun too.
yeah.
I was like, footer
That's
making a
great.
comeback.
Well, and it's like because footers can be one of those things that you're like, what do I do with this, right? So you can sort of get that opportunity to see what others have done and give you some inspiration. But I was also wondering, you use Reviewing Library from time to time. Have you used their AI site builder to get a sitemap for
Yeah.
projects before?
Yeah, I tested it, the other day. I was just curious what it would do.
Mhm.
It's interesting, and so it does, like, so you put in your little prompt, and it does, like, it does the homepage, and if you,
Mhm.
like it, you can continue on building the rest of the sitemap,
Right.
um, or you can, like, reiterate on your prompt, and then once that good, you just click on wireframes, and it goes boom and does all the wireframes too. You can export it into Figma, or you can export like the components directly into Webflow. So
Mhm.
you could
Yeah.
have like a interactive wireframe if you really wanted to go that route and have it already in Webflow.
Right. And how did you find it in terms of, how you would have approached a sitemap versus what it provided?
I definitely edited it. Let's just say it was kind of there, but not quite there. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
it didn't have
exactly.
all the information that I had, because it has a tiny little, it only has it has write a short,
Mhm.
um, short prompt, and I'm like, there's a lot more information than a short prompt. Ah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Dale is asking, what do you like to do away from the computer and how do you decompress?
Oh, good question. I like to brew beer with my husband.
Sorry, I didn't.
Beer brewing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, and I
That's
don't
neat.
play guitar, if anyone's wondering. And Siri's
Sorry,
asking
my
questions.
Siri suddenly popped up. And I'm not sure that I like this thing where it'll just start talking instead of needing "Hey Siri." So, do you try different recipes, and is there one that you've enjoyed the most more than others?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, we did a winter ale. Oh, so good.
mm,
It was kind of,
hmm
if anyone's had the Phillips, no, the Granville Island winter ale was really similar to that one. That's
okay,
a beer in Vancouver. So really
Mhm.
good. So it was really similar to that one. It was tasty.
Right. Um, and there are guitars on the wall behind you. Is that something that's your interest, or is that from someone else in your family?
Yeah, my husband is a bass player. He used to do
Oh,
it
cool.
professionally, 2 Juno nominated. Yeah, so
Great.
fancy. So this is his
Bands we would know?
Cobra and the Lotus and Unleash the Archers were the old bands that he's been in, so there might be
Cool.
some people that know them. Yeah.
Maybe. All
Yeah.
right, cool. And family, you said you've got at least one child. You mentioned having a child and then getting into
Yeah.
roller derby after that. So, what's your family situation?
Yep,
If that's not too
one
personal.
oh, that's okay. I have one crazy 8-year-old, a giant dog, and a guinea pig. Yeah.
Guinea pig. All right. And is the guinea pig your daughter's, or has that sort of become a family project?
Family project, like most
Okay.
pets.
Cool. And Patrick has said, so much talent all in one house. And I bet, so does that get interesting with so many people, with both of you being, sort of creative in that way? Does that get fun? Is it fun to?
Yeah, I think it's good. It's like we don't have much crossover,
Mm.
so I'm not musical in any way. I can play the cowbell very well, and that's about
Noted.
it. Yeah.
Well, and sometimes we need more cowbell, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Good. Jeremy, you got anything else?
No, I think that brings us to our wrap up, I think.
All
I don't
right.
see any more other pressing questions, although Patrick does ask, are you a fan of Kill Bill? I think that was in the roller derby section of things.
Oh,
I don't know.
I
yes,
missed that one.
I love Kill Bill, and that's obviously why the number 88. But my roller derby name was Apocalyptic. So that was my roller derby name.
Nice.
Cool. Excellent. So Yomi, how can people find you online? How can they follow you?
So I'm on Yomi Jordan on LinkedIn is probably the best thing. I am on Twitter. I'm not really busy on Twitter or X or so that's not a good place. And then I just really quickly created a new portfolio website on Webflow. So that's what that is.
Oh, great. Excellent. Well, we'll have to go check that out. So that brings us to the end of our 12th. Can you believe it? We've done 12 showcases already. And we'd like to thank you all for joining us and remind you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and watch for our next showcase coming up in January. It's going to be a little different, a little special. Join us for our upcoming annual Christmas party on December 13th, which we'll be co-hosting with the Floxies in the NCN Lodge gather space. So it's Maggie's been decorating it, and it's going to be really fun. Scavenger hunt and fun swag from Edgar Allan and Flo Sparrow. So thanks to them as well. And we actually have we can pop that up. Yay! And keep an eye out for something cool and new coming up on December 15th. It's the beginning of something new for No Code North, and we're excited to see how it's going to evolve. So hopefully you can join us then.
And visit our website at nocodenorth.com and sign up for our mailing list to receive all of the latest updates. We're very close to releasing a new events page that will make it even easier to track our upcoming interviews and workshops. And follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And remember to join us Fridays in the Lodge, our cool gather space. Our Lodge Hangouts are open to everyone. Until next time, bye, everyone.
Bye.